Joe Flacco is such an interesting name to think about because I think if you ask 10 different Browns fans about Joe Flacco, you get two very different reactions, right? I think half of the Browns fans will sit here and say Joe Flacco took us to the playoffs in 2023, and he's going to be amazing for this team, and I'm glad we're giving him another chance here in Cleveland. And then other people are going to say, man, I don't know about that, right? And not be very sure, confident in this whole Joe Flacco experience. So he's kind of split the audience a little bit. I think it leans towards people believing in Joe Flacco because at least he did win in this uniform before. And we know his dominance in Cleveland Browns Stadium. So Joe's a very interesting quarterback to talk about. What I want to speak on today is what is the best case scenario in 2025 for Joe Flacco? What does that look like? Because this isn't a traditional scenario where I think that you're going to get the best case scenario from your quarterback, being he plays 17 games, you make the playoffs, he has 4,000 yards, this, that, and the third, right? I think it's going to have to look a lot different what the best case scenario for at least the Cleveland Browns is in this situation if they decide to go ahead with Joe Flacco. My first thing with Joe and where my expectations are, and this is where the bar is for me, where I think, hey, I'm pretty happy with Joe Flacco if we get to this point by the bye week. If we're at the bye week and Joe Flacco has given you 8 starts and like 3 or 4 of them are quality starts, we're talking about good QBR, good success rate, good PFF grade, whichever metric you use to define a quality start, he has 3 legitimate quality starts in 8 games. That to me is a massive win. Like, I will talk about bringing in Joe Flacco as a W at that point. My expectations expand no further than that. If you can get 8 starts, again, 3 or 4 of them being quality, massive, massive win. And if you could get to that week 9 bye with 3 or 4 wins under your belt, given the gauntlet that the season is to start, and somehow get to the bye week with your season intact and a chance to pass the torch to one of your rookie quarterbacks for the rest of the year while still playing meaningful football. And that does matter. I'll explain that in a minute. That is the best case scenario for Joe Flacco. If Joe Flacco does that, sir, you did your job. Like, I have no complaints about what Joe Flacco was here to do. Like, you got your money's worth. The signing worked out. You got exactly what you want. Again, I'm saying that May 15th, right? So if I say this shit, if this shit happens and I say that was a success in August, you know I meant that shit, all right? Like, that is how I feel about Joe Flacco in his best case scenario. What that looks like statistically, probably like 2,000 yards, somewhere between 12 and 15 touchdowns, 7 to 9 interceptions. He's going to throw you out of some games. That's just where Joe Flacco is at this point of his career. He's going to throw you out some games. Again, I'm not expecting to be a playoff team this year, so that's not going to bother me as much. Now, let's go back to another point I had, right? Because my whole thing is, hey, if Joe plays decent, he gets you to the bye, and the team is at a good enough place to where if you yank him at the bye, the season still matters. So I could put a rookie in there. Why would I yank Joe Flacco no matter what? Because there's just no future with having a great Joe Flacco year for this football team. Like, we got to think about what benefits the Browns, not just for this season, but what benefits long term. Joe Flacco, if he plays 17 games, has an amazing season for you, it does nothing for you next year. It might be fun for that year, but it does absolutely nothing for the future of this football team. If you don't learn anything about Dylan, you don't learn anything about Shador, you don't know anything about any of these young quarterbacks that you brought into play, right? So at some point, the expectation has to be for this team that Joe Flacco passes the torch. And all I can hope is that by the time that comes, the season's still intact. The reason I think that matters is it's tough getting a true look at rookie quarterbacks when they're playing in games that, quite frankly, don't matter. You don't know what the effort's going to be from the players around them. You hope it's going to be great, but, if you're like 5 games underwater, you're going to get shitty effort no matter who's on the team. That's just how that works, right? So you don't want to put your rookie quarterback in there in a portion of the season where a lot of your veteran players are in a mode where they're prioritizing staying healthy versus trying to get a dub every Sunday because the season's just not at that point. You want your starter also, your quarterback, to get used to playing football games that matter, right? Play with that pressure, play with that feeling of like, hey, both teams need this. And I think that matters a ton too when it comes to a quarterback's development. Like they need to play in games that matter. They need to make mistakes in games with stakes. They need to have triumphs in games with high stakes. Like they need to play with stakes in year one, because I don't want to be in a situation where a quarterback has basically accumulated a good stat line in garbage time. We're thinking we're good, and then the first time that quarterback plays a meaningful game in 2026, we realize he's not good. Don't want to be in that spot. I want that quarterback to play meaningful games. And if Joe can get this team to a place to where they pass the torch and they're still playing meaningful football, right? A game below 500, at 500, maybe even a game above 500 if we're super lucky, right? Then that's really good. I can't expect more from Joe Flacco. Anything else he does above that, thumbs up to you, sir. You did a great job. This is a season that's going to be defined based on how we feel about the quarterback position at the end of it. That's just the truth. No matter what the record is, we're going to feel really successful or really down about this team based on what the outlook is at quarterback. And the outlook might be great because you got the number 1 overall pick and there's a dude coming out of college, right? A Joe Burrow-like prospect that looks to be a no-brainer, and you have the pick to go grab that guy. Your outlook might look different at quarterback because one of these rookies stepped up and put up big numbers and you're like, hey, maybe we got something here, right? You'll want your outlook at quarterback to be optimistic, to be positive. You don't want to end the year and think, oh, we're desperate at quarterback, man. We are desperate. That's not where you want to be at. And you got to use the 2026 season to figure that, 2025 season to not get desperate at quarterback, or at least try as much as possible to not get desperate at quarterback. So that's why I think that's super important. Now, I kind of alluded to this. Why I don't think Joe Flacco plays a full season? Multiple reasons. One, he hasn't played a full season since like 2017. I think it's unrealistic to expect him to play a full season when he hasn't done so in like 8 seasons. It's kind of crazy. You can argue that he hasn't had the opportunity, but I would argue he has had the opportunity to start a full season, right? Especially in Denver. He never did it. And I just don't expect to do that 40 to give you a full season's of work, especially when their body has showed signs of starting to break down over the last couple of years. So not really a big believer he's going to hold up physically. Another reason why I don't think he's going to play a full season for the Cleveland Browns, I don't think it benefits the Browns to have him play the whole season. The Browns really do, again, the main goal of this season is to try to feel a lot more clear about your quarterback, because you got to do something in 2026, right? Can't keep kicking this can down the road. You got to know who your game, like you want to end the season knowing who your day one starter is for 2026. Like whether that be a rookie, whether that be somebody on the roster, that's the position you want to be at. You don't want to be guessing again, right? If you're guessing again, you're going to have to take a quarterback, and you may or may not feel great about the selection that you make there. You don't want to be desperate. And yeah, would it be fun to maybe get 9 wins with Joe Flacco if he plays a full season, or, maybe you get close to 500, or maybe you win 7 games with Joe Flacco? Would that be fun? Maybe, but it wouldn't be better for the organization. What's better for the organization is we want to have some kind of semblance of what we got at the quarterback position for next year, before we go into the draft and free agency and all of that. So it's a combination of things. I don't think his body's going to hold up for a full season. I don't think the Browns are going to even want his body to hold up for a full season. So those two things make it kind of clear to me that he won't. If he does, I'll be shocked, but I don't expect it out of him, and I don't think that should be the expectation for him. And again, just to touch on it, reiterate, the reason I don't think the best case scenario for the Browns is Joe Flacco somehow does give you 17 starts at age 40. And the reason is, even if he plays well, what does that mean for next year? Are you going to bring back 41-year-old Joe Flacco? Like, there are big questions about that. There's no guarantee that he's even going to want to play after having a good season. There's a chance he might just decide to retire, leaving you in the same spot you're in right now today at the quarterback position, but with more uncertainty. So I'd rather not be in that spot. If I'm the Cleveland Browns, I'd rather be in a position to where you give these young guys a try. And that's why I think the best case scenario is that Joe Flacco gives you about half a season. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. What do you think Joe Flacco's best case scenario is? Let me know. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.